actively facing 24 years next month.
Wow.
Like, this is not no play situation.
Tory Lanez new prison is reportedly one of the most California's dangerous prisons, and multiple inmates are found dead in their prison cells.
Guys who in there for robbery, like serious assault and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's a little different in the state. But hopefully Corey will be all right.
Fans know Daystar Shemuel Shua Peterson better by his stage name Tory Lanez. He's been a somewhat notable figure in the hip-hop scene ever since he dropped his first mixtape back in 2013. However, despite his musical contributions, it's likely that Tory Lanez won't be remembered for his tracks or albums. Instead, he'll be infamous for something far darker, being convicted of shooting fellow artist Megan Thee Stallion in the foot.
Yes, this Tory shot me. You shot me, and you got your publicists and your people going to these blogs lying and
The DA's office says Lanez, whose legal name is Daystar Peterson, shot Megan's feet during an argument in the Hollywood Hills July 12th.
In the aftermath of his conviction, Lanez has found himself in one of the most dangerous prisons in the U.S., North Kern State Prison in Delano, California, as he begins serving his 10-year sentence. In September 2023, he was transferred to this medium security facility, which houses about 4,000 inmates and is located roughly 145 miles north of Los Angeles. But North Kern is known more for its role as a reception center for new inmates, meaning Lanez probably won't spend his entire sentence there. Even so, the time he does spend at North Kern is something he'll have to navigate very carefully. This place has a notorious reputation for violence and danger. To give you an idea of just how bad it is, let's look at some recent incidents. In February 2023, a 53-year-old inmate named Juan Villanueva was behind the prison walls. Not long after, in July, another prisoner named Ricardo Saldivar was found dead in his cell. Villanueva's was particularly gruesome as he was K-worded by his cellmate, who turned out to be a convicted serial. Meanwhile, Saldivar's death was shrouded in mystery, prompting the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to launch a homicide investigation due to these suspicious circumstances. These are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the violence at North Kern. The prison has a long history of clashes between inmates and correctional officers. For instance, back in July 2020, an inmate was found guilty of attacking two officers. There's even been a case where a guard got shot, underscoring the severe risks everyone in the prison faces. The facility is rife with racial and gang tensions, with groups like Sereno and Pisa gangs often clashing and sparking violent outbreaks among the inmates. Given all this chaos, it's no wonder that when news broke about Lanez's transfer to North Kern, his fans were quick to express their concerns on social media. Some supporters suggested that Lanez should pay for protection to ensure his safety, which makes a lot of sense considering his status as a celebrity. Unfortunately, being a high-profile artist means he's likely to become a target for other inmates. What's really interesting, though, is that despite all its drawbacks, this new prison is probably an upgrade for Tory Lanez compared to the LA County jail he was stuck in before. In August 2023, it came out that Lanez was spending a brutal 22 hours a day locked up in solitary confinement there. They did this to keep him safe from other inmates who might want to attack him. Wardens were checking on him every half hour in the same administrative segregation unit that held other celebrities like O.J. Simpson and recently sentenced Danny Masterson. The conditions in LA County Jail were beyond rough. Since June 2023, at least 12 people have died there. And the crazy part? They've had plans to replace that jail on the table for like 2 decades, but nothing's been done. Leaked CCTV footage from the jail showed how slow the correctional officers were to respond to violence. They only showed up nearly 15 minutes after a fight was already over. But that's just the surface. Other videos showed even worse horrors. A man trying to seriously harm himself, a group of inmates ganging up on one guy, and even a woman giving birth right on the floor in the middle of a prison hallway. After seeing some of this footage, a senior lecturer in criminal justice at the University of Texas at Austin said, quote, "There was absolutely no supervision. That could be happening with cameras on and no one comes in is mind-boggling." A lawyer named Rhonda Renee Dixon even filed a motion to become Lanez's legal counsel because she believed he was receiving unusually cruel punishment. Dixon was shocked when she met him, saying, quote, "His eyes were black. He was totally despondent. He told me he wanted to go to a state prison. I said, 'You want to go to a state prison? Why?' He said, "At least I'll be able to go into the yard and talk to people. That upset me. I don't think he's guilty." As terrible as LA County Jail was, that solitary confinement did keep Lanez separated from all the other inmates, which actually made it safer for him in a twisted way. It's not clear yet how separated Lanez will be kept at North Kern, but if he ends up having to interact with the rest of the inmates, he could be in serious danger. The worrying thing is, a lot of the incidents at North Kern in 2023 have been pretty high profile. The recent murders we talked about earlier caught the attention of local media, showing a clear escalation in the violence levels there. That's got to be a huge concern for Lanez, who will want to keep as low a profile as possible. But after such a long, controversial trial, that might not be very easy. Lanez was well aware of the potential dangers awaiting him behind bars. He had been denied an appeal to remain free while he sought to overturn his conviction. A non-profit organization was also involved in trying to help him stay out of prison a little longer. They released a statement saying, quote, "The denial of the appeal bond is undoubtedly disappointing, but it does not deter us from our mission." While they might not have been deterred, this was yet another wrinkle in a trial that had been full of them. Now let's talk about the trial. So we know how it all wrapped up for Tory Lanez, with him ending up in jail. He was found guilty on December 23, 2022 on 3 serious felony counts: assault with a semi-automatic handgun, carrying a loaded, unregistered firearm in a vehicle, and discharging a firearm with gross negligence. The jury didn't take long to reach their verdict either, just 7 hours of deliberation spread over 2 days. When they finally declared Lanez guilty, he was immediately arrested, no more being out on bail for him. According to reports, Lanez kept a stony face, staring straight ahead until his father stood up and started yelling at the judge and prosecutors. Also, one of the wildest parts of the whole lawsuit is the rumor that Jay-Z might have had a hand in sending Tory to prison.
And the whole wicked system of Rock Nation, including you, Jay-Z. You have traded and bartered the souls of young men, and you're still doing it.
Megan Thee Stallion wasn't there, but her lawyer made a statement saying, quote, "The jury got it right. I'm thankful there is justice for Meg." Let's rewind a bit. When Lanez was first arrested back in July 2020, he was only charged with concealing a firearm in a vehicle. But as weeks and months passed, things escalated, and by October, the LA County District Attorney's Office hit him with an assault charge too. Before his sentence was handed down, Lanez addressed the court saying, quote, "If I could change it, I would, but I can't. Everything I did that night, I take full responsibility. I truly am just trying to be a better person." This was a big deal because up until then he had consistently claimed he was innocent. Throughout the trial, it became clear he was a man of contradictions. On one side, the defense painted him as a doting father and a philanthropist.
If it doesn't fit, you must quit.
Yo, chill, he's got the baby. Chill out, everybody back up.
Yeah, little man.
He's got the baby. Open up. Have some respect.
But on the other, he was the guy who shot at Megan Thee Stallion 5 times. This duality was something the judge noted, saying it was hard to reconcile these two sides of Tory Lanez. However, he added that sometimes good people do bad things, actions have consequences, and there were no winners in this case. Now the road to sentencing was bumpy. Even though Lanez was found guilty in December 2022, he didn't get sentenced until much later. It should have happened in June 2023, but Lanez and his lawyers tried to get the judge taken off the case, alleging bias. They cited 3 specific instances: the judge wanting information presented in a particular order, not allowing live testimony from certain witnesses, and interrupting the defense during their arguments. An appellate court rejected this, but the sentencing got pushed back anyway. In court, Lanez's lawyers pulled out all the stops trying to get a shorter sentence. They argued that he should be released to attend a residential substance abuse rehabilitation program, claiming he had alcohol abuse disorder and suffered from anxiety and PTSD after his mother's unexpected death when he was just 11 years old. This claim seemed to come out of nowhere, and the prosecution immediately pounced on it, expressing skepticism. They argued, quote, "This case has nothing to do with mental illness. He shot Megan because she bruised his ego." They made it clear that Tory Lanez was not the victim in this story. In addition to this unexpected claim, the defense also presented about 70 letters supporting Lanez's character, including one from Iggy Azalea. Tory's father even apologized for his earlier outburst in court. The judge noted that Lanez had already served 305 days of his 10-year sentence, which included 231 days in prison, an extra 34 days and 40 days under house arrest. However, just 2 days after his sentencing, Lanez seemed to backtrack on his earlier statement by releasing another one saying, quote, "I have always maintained my innocence and I always will. This week in court, I took responsibility for all verbal and intimate moments that I shared with the parties involved, that's it." In the rest of the statement, he said he was wrongfully convicted and had no intention of apologizing for something he didn't do. This probably gave his fans some hope, showing he hadn't given up the fight, but it leaves a lot hanging for Megan Thee Stallion, who went through absolute hell after she spoke out about what happened, with a lot of that hell being stirred up by Lanez's fans. So what really went down between him and Megan? According to an Instagram live from Megan, she was in Lanez's car on July 12, 2020 with him, his bodyguard, and her friend. They were arguing, and Megan, who was in the front seat, got out of the car. She claimed Lanez shot at her through the car's back window.
Yes, this Tory shot me. You shot me. And you got your publicists and your people going to these blogs lying.
I get out the car and it's like everything happens so fast. And all I hear is this man screaming. He said, dance, and he started shooting. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Megan insisted that rumors she had hit Lanez were bogus and that the shooting did not relate to Lanez's supposed romantic interest in Kylie Jenner. TMZ reported that a detective was told Lanez shouted "Dance, be dance" as he fired shots at Megan's feet, injuring her so that she fell to the ground and then crawled to safety. Megan told the detective that a drunk Lanez tried to bribe her to keep quiet because he was on probation. Unfortunately, Megan's first mistake was not telling law enforcement she had been shot. Early reports said she was hurt because of broken glass, not a gunshot. In her statement read on the day Lanez was sentenced, she said, quote, "Since I was viciously shot by the defendant, I have not experienced a single day of peace. Slowly but surely I'm healing and coming back, but I will never be the same." People might wonder why Megan didn't just tell the truth from the start. It was another case of someone being intimidated by the cops. In a video, she explained that the police who showed up were acting aggressively and it spooked her. Remember, this was June 2020, a time when people were especially wary of law enforcement. She gave insight into her state of mind, saying, quote, "I didn't want to die. I didn't want the police to shoot me because there's a guy with a gun in the car with me." Her reaction was understandable, but it played a big role in people questioning her story, opening the door to a lot of race and gender-based bullying and discrimination online. A sentencing memorandum filed on June 6, 2023 recommended a 13-year sentence for Lanez and stated he had crafted a campaign of misinformation using his online reach to encourage his followers to target and traumatize Megan repeatedly for nearly 3 years. His followers attacked her on social media, leaving horrible comments and writing vile tweets targeting everything from her character to questioning if she was telling the truth. When a series of these communications were presented in court, Megan responded saying, quote, "I see these tweets and Instagram posts every day. Oh, that bee should have got shot in the head, too much twerk, or who cares, she effed everybody. She should have been shot." She talked about how torturous it had been, stating, quote, "I don't feel like I want to be on this earth. I wish he would have just shot and K-worded me if I knew I would have had to go through this torture." The bullying and intimidation weren't just limited to social media. On one court date, as Megan arrived at the courthouse, people supporting Lanez could be heard yelling, quote, "Why are you lying on that boy?" But those words were drowned out to some degree by those who showed up to support her, as she did what was necessary to ensure she got justice. When the trial got underway, Megan's character was repeatedly thrown into question. Lanez's lawyers alleged that their client wasn't the shooter, but rather it was Megan's former best friend, Kelsey Harris. The lawyers specifically attacked Megan, saying, "Megan Thee Stallion is a liar. She lied about everything in this case from the beginning. She lied under oath here." That's just scratching the surface of the messed up tactics Lanez's lawyers allegedly used. In late September 2020, the drama hit a whole new level. Someone from Tory Lanez's team decided to play dirty and pretended to be reps from 300 Entertainment, which is Megan Thee Stallion's record label. They emailed a bunch of media outlets pushing for positive press on Tory's behalf. But that's not even the worst part. They also created a fake text message chain between Tory and Megan, claiming Megan didn't actually want to testify against him. This was a huge deal because 300 Entertainment had to step in with a statement saying, quote, "The email impersonation of our head of creative Kevin Leong with the intent to disseminate false information has been brought to our attention, and we are working diligently on Megan's behalf to get to the bottom of the matter." Of course, Lanez denied having anything to do with the fake emails and the social media attacks, but even if he wasn't directly involved, he wasn't exactly keeping a low profile either. In September 2020, he dropped an album called Daystar, which had 17 tracks, all somehow referencing the shooting. One track, Money Over Fallouts, directly questioned Megan's account of the incident. He rapped, quote, "How the F you get shot in your foot, don't hit no bones or tendons. How the F your team is trying to paint me as some whole menace. It wasn't just Lanez either." Drake also threw shade at Megan in his song Circo Loco, and Iggy Azalea wrote a letter supporting Lanez. Let's rewind for a second. Megan Thee Stallion comes forward with her story, and immediately Lanez' fans go on the attack, threatening and bullying her online and even outside the courthouse. It wasn't just fans either. Some artists questioned if she was telling the truth. And don't forget about Lanez' lawyers trying to drag her character through the mud. All this was happening despite a protective order that required Lanez to stay at least 100 yards away from her and barred him from any contact. But Lanez just couldn't seem to follow the rules. He showed up at Rolling Loud during DaBaby's performance when Megan was backstage, which was a clear violation of the protective order. Side note, this was the same gig where DaBaby made a bunch of comments and tanked his career. Anyway, Lanez' stunt at Rolling Loud was just another way to mess with Megan mentally. Between July 2020 and August 2023, she had to relive the trauma of the shooting repeatedly, all while dealing with Lanez' antics and the relentless bullying from his supporters. The shooting between Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion also brought up some seriously disturbing themes as the trial got incredibly sensationalized. We're talking about the same media landscape that covered the Weinstein scandal and the Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp drama from every angle imaginable. The media did what the media does, blowing everything up. But Tory's lawyers weren't any better. They tried to shift the attention off Tory by spinning this story of jealousy between women. The whole ordeal turned into a messy mix of trauma, misogyny, PTSD, and constantly changing narratives. Megan even got into a bit of trouble herself for initially saying she got hurt by broken glass, instead of admitting she'd been shot. But Robert Shapiro, who was part of O.J. Simpson's legal defense team, said that it's pretty normal for victims to change their stories out of fear for retribution, and they might later feel safe enough to tell the truth. Fast forward a few years and this trial might just fade from people's memories. But over the past few years, it's revealed a lot about how society views prominent women, especially black women, when they're victimized. The sensationalism around these cases just makes it harder for the victims to ever truly recover. One big word that came up during Megan's ordeal was misogynoir. Back in 2010, feminist author Maya Bailey dug deep into the concept of misogyny and came up with this term to describe the unique hatred black women face. It was clear in Megan's case. Bailey even pointed out how people rallied to Tory's defense in ways they did not for Megan. From online abuse to people yelling obscenities at her outside the courthouse, Megan faced a lot of hate. Looking at it through this lens helps us understand that what Megan experienced is part of a larger cultural problem. The S-ism was blatant too. Tory's lawyers tried to deflect blame by suggesting Megan's former best friend Kelsey Harris was the shooter, painting a narrative of jealousy between the women. They even brought up Megan's S history to discredit her. During the trial, people were shouting questions like, "How many times did you have S with Megan?" at Tory. This tactic of focusing on a woman's S history and behavior is a classic example of misogynoir. Through all this, Megan unwittingly became one of the most prominent faces in the fight to protect black women. What's really scary is that these high-profile trials aren't just about what happens in court. They're also about the court of public opinion. Long before a jury or a judge makes a decision, most people have already made up their minds based on sensationalized media coverage. This was especially true in the case between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. But for black women, it's even more complicated. An assistant professor from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill pointed out that Amber Heard's situation is very different from Megan's. Black women in the US face the expectation to be strong and speak out, but they're also pressured to protect black men from an unjust judicial system. It's a catch-22 that Megan found herself trapped in. In the long run, the Stallion vs. Lanez case might not get as much attention as other big celebrity trials, but for those involved, the scars will always be there. Megan will never get back those 3 years of her life spent being mercilessly bullied, having her character questioned, and reliving the trauma of that night. But with Tory Lanez behind bars and this chapter seemingly closed, she can finally start to move on. For Tory, things are a bit more complicated. He gained notoriety during the trial, but now that he's been found guilty, he's facing a grim reality. His supporters are worried about his safety in one of the most dangerous prisons in the US, while others are just glad that Megan found justice. Tory's story with Megan might be over, but his journey as a prisoner is just beginning. Every day in North Kern State Prison is unpredictable and violent. It's a scary situation, no doubt. And while Megan's nightmare might be ending, Tory's is just getting started. That's it for today. Until next time, bye.